Hello everyone. So today we are going to start a new chapter, that's fraction. We are going to understand in this video what is fraction and the basic concept related to fraction. Also, we'll understand what is the type of fraction, and how many types of fractions are there. We'll understand from the basic to advanced video by video. So this is the first video. It's going to be introduction video. It's not going to be so tough, or it's not going to be very advanced in this video only, because we are growing step by step. So this video is just an overview of what is actually a fraction, right? So let's begin. First of all, let me write the name of the chapter, that's fraction. Yes. First of all, before starting any chapter or before doing any exercise or lesson, we should understand the demand and the meaning of the lesson that we are doing. Now, for example, this is chapter fraction that we are going to do. It's a very, very important concept in mathematics. Also, why is it important? And what's the meaning, what's the actually meaning of fraction is? So a fraction is a part of something. It's a part of something. Part of something. Now, this is the term that is used to define, the fraction. But now what it actually means, let's just try to understand that. For example, we almost every one of us may have pizza, right? Let's take an example of that pizza. So suppose we are having this pizza. Now, generally in a regular size pizza, we get 4 slices of it, right? Like this. Now, if you will notice that the whole pizza, this one slice of pizza, let's say this slice of pizza is the part of one whole pizza, right? So this we call as a fraction. Part of something is called as fraction. Now, this is how we explain what is fraction. Now, what's the use of fraction? Basically, the fraction, it's not only used in the normal life by us, because see, it's very important. It's about the part of something. So it's useful in daily life, as well as it's important while doing any experiment or in any formulation. It's really important, so that we are going to understand. For example, I've said part of something means that's a fraction. Let's take one more example. I am 100% sure that when you guys were kids, or small kids, or even now as well, you guys you guys may get chocolates from your parents, right? Maybe a dairy milk. You can imagine that, because that's the perfect example over here that can be used. So let's try to make a dairy milk shaped chocolate. For example, this is the chocolate bar that I have. Now, in this chocolate bar, we have some portions like this. Now, if you will see, each portion is the part of this chocolate only, right? It's not a different chocolate, it's the part of the same chocolate. And if we are talking about just one part or two part, or how much, or however, how many parts we are talking about, that's just the fraction. Now, let's come to representation of fraction. How we represent a fraction. Representing a fraction, it's really important to show the actual value. Now, how are we going to do it? So, as I've said, let's come back again to the example of pizza. As I've told you that let's take this example, the shaded part, we are talking about that. So, the denotation would be, in mathematical language, how would we represent this fraction, that this one part, let's say it's eaten, right? Now, how are we going to represent that? So there will be a lining. Underneath the lining, we have to write the total number of parts. We have to write the total number of parts. Now, in this case, in the case of pizza, how many total number of parts are there? So that's 1, 2, and 3, 4. 4 total number of parts are there, right? Now, on the top, we write about the part we are talking about. So, part we are talking about. Now, let's say, as I've told you, that we are talking about the shaded portion or the shaded part of that pizza. So, that's how many part is it? So, it's a 1 part. We can just write it as 1 over 4. That's how you represent a fraction. That's how you write a fraction. Okay, if we see the example of second chocolate bar, let's say you are talking about this much part of the fraction. Talking about this much part of the fraction. Now, how are we going to represent this? The representation is the same. The representation is same for like every fraction. How are we going to do that? The total number of parts is going to be in the bottom, and the number of parts we are talking about, the number of portions that we are talking about is going to be on the top, right? So the total number of parts are 6 in this case, right? And the parts that we are talking about is 2. So the fraction of this chocolate bar is 2 over 6. This is how you represent the fraction. Now, let's come to the basic concept of fraction. That is around a circle. Let's take the example of pizza again. Let's come back to the basic example of pizza. See, in this chapter, this example of pizza is going to be very, very useful for us because the things that we are going to understand it in the context of circle. So a thing that is circle, maybe a pizza, would work best. Now, as I've told you, in a normal pizza, we have 4 slices, right? In a regular size pizza. Now, earlier you saw that when we are talking about 1 part, so the fraction representation of that part was 1 over 4. Remember? The fraction representation of that part was 1 over 4. Now, what if I talk about 2 parts? Like we have seen in the chocolate example, what if we are talking about 2 parts? So let's shade 1 more part. Now, what's the fraction now? The fraction is 2 by 4. Now, let's say I'm talking about the 3 parts or 3 portion. What will be the fraction representation now? So total 3 parts we are talking about. So that makes it 3 over 4. Now, if we are talking about the whole pizza or all the 4 parts of the pizza, we are going to write it as 4 over 4. And you know that if you divide 4 by 4, this is going to be 1 only. And when you had the total parts of 4 and we are talking about all the 4 parts, that's representing this as a whole, right? We are talking about the whole pizza. So a whole is represented by 1. Now, if we individually talk about each portion of pizza, let's say we are first talking about the color section. This section will be 1 over 4, right? This section will be 1 over 4, which we call as 1/4. 1/4. Now, if we talk about the other section or other portion individually, we are not talking in group now. Let's say if we talk about this portion, then also it will be 1 by 4 if we just talk about this portion. Now, let's talk about a different portion this time. So if we talk about this portion individually, this is also going to be 1 over 4, nothing else. The last one, if I'm going to talk about the last option, the last portion as well, and individually again, so this is going to be again 1 over 4, which we call as 1/4. Now, if you will notice that if we talk about each portion individually, 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, they are all together making 4 over 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 over 4. That's later on gives you 1 only, right? 4 over 4 over here, you have seen this, that it's going to give you 1. Now, 1/4 of any object, if there are total 4 parts and we are talking about 1, that is called as a quarter. That is called as a quarter. What is a quarter? The 1/4 of something, that's quarter. Now, let's come to the next thing, that is, if you have noticed that if you join the 2 quarter, let's say this one and this one, it's going to be half, right? Half of the whole pizza, if you will see. Let's add it, 1/4, 1/4 plus 1/4. It's going to be 2/4, right? Now, the 2/4, that means if you further solve it, it's going to be 1/2. That's the half, right? If you have 2 and you're talking about 1, that's half you're talking about, right? So 2 quarter makes 1 half. We should always remember that 2 quarters makes 1 half. Now, the other 2 quarters will, if you will join them again, they will also make 1 half, right? Let's talk about the other 2 quarters, these two. So now let's just add this 1/4 plus 1/4. This is also going to be 2/4, right? This is also going to be 2/4. Now, the same thing will happen. The same thing is that if you add 2 quarters, it's going to give you a half, right? Now, if you will notice that if I join this half, like this half with this half, it's going to make full, isn't it? So, half is 2/4 plus 1/2 plus another half is going to give you full. It's so easy. You can understand with the help of the picture as well that it's going to give you 4 over 4. 4 over 4 is nothing but 1, which is we call as 1 whole, right? So remember this thing, there is a hierarchy that 2 quarters gives you 1 half and 2 halves gives you a complete or a whole, right? Now, let's talk about this scenario, like let's talk about this thing in a different scenario. For example, again, I have the same circular object. Now, this circular object, this is a big size pizza, giant pizza. Remember, like if you have noticed, a big size pizza may have 8 pieces as well, right? So let's draw 8 pieces or 8 slices of this pizza. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. And this one is 6, 7, and 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this pizza has total of 8 parts. Now, if we're talking about the quarter, how much will be the quarter of this pizza? Can you find out what will be the quarter in this pizza? Quarter is 1/4, right? A quarter is 1/4. What will be the amount of fraction that will include in the quarter of this pizza? How much will be 1/4 of this pizza? How we will identify? See, we have total 8 number of portions, right? We have total 8 number of portions. So if the number of portions are double, this is the unit. This is the unit fraction, like unit 1, right? Now, if we talk about this pizza, if you have noticed that the number of total portions have been doubled between both the things, both the pizzas, so both the examples, right? So if the number doubles up, this the number on the upper side, it's also going to be doubled. So this one is going to be 2. Now, this is the quarter of a pizza that has 8 slices. Now, if you want to see it graphically or with the help of the shape only, let's try to see it. So, let's try to do the thing. Let's try to, understand it with the help of 1/4 only would be far better. Let's see. So, in a pizza where there are just 4 parts, it's like this, right? So now this much portion is 1/4, this much portion is 1/4, this much portion is 1/4, and this much portion is 1/4, right? But now if you will look it with the help of a pizza, where there are total 8 portions, you will see that 2 portions are coming in a quarter, isn't it? So that is why it's 2/8. That's why it's 2/8. Now, let's come back to the original pizza that we have. Let's talk about the half of the pizza. How much fraction will include in the half of this pizza? As you all know that 2/4 makes 1/2. We just saw over here. So let's add 2/4. We know 2/4 are 2/8 and 2/8, right? If you will add it, it's going to give you a half, right? So if you now just add this, it's going to be 4/8. And you know exactly that half of 8 is 4 only, right? So the 4/8 will be half of this pizza. What will be the full? 8/8. How can we see that? You know that 2 halves makes 1 full, right? Let's add 2 halves. 1/2 is 4/8. The other half will also be 4/8, right? So now if you just add both, it's going to give you 8/8 only. That is going to be 1 individually, or like 1 as a whole, right? This is going to be 1 as a whole. Now, since we are talking about the representation of fraction and how do we do that, you have noticed that I've called the number on the top of this line. For example, let's take 2/8. The number on the top of this line, it's the number of portion we are talking about, right? The number in the bottom of the line, it's the total number of portions that a thing has, right? Now, in mathematical term, what do we call them? The number on the top, we call them numerator, and the number in the bottom, we call it as a denominator. We call them as a denominator, right? What do we call it? Number on the top is the numerator, and the number that is below, or in the bottom, that's the denominator. So this is how we represent a fraction. This is how we write a fraction. In same cases, you can find questions like you have to shade the correct portion of a fraction. For example, let's say I have this chocolate bar, and this chocolate bar has total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 portions. This chocolate bar has total 6 portions, and you have to shade 2 portions out of it. How you will shade it? So you need to shade 2/6. And how are we going to do that? We know that the number on the top is the portion that we are talking about, right? So you just need to shade 2 portions that will represent the fraction 2/6. This is how we can do the questions where shading is involved. Now, sometimes the same question can be asked in a different manner, or you can say just the opposite manner. How is it going to be like? So now you have this fraction, okay? Now you have a shaded portion and this. Now the shaded portion is representing the fraction. How are you going to find out that how much fraction is it? So you know that the shaded portion is the part that we are talking about. So it's obviously going to be on the top. And then you have to count the total number of portions. How many total number of portions are there? So it's 6. So 2 over 6 will be the representation of this shaded portion in the chocolate bar, right? This is how you represent a fraction. This is how you deal with these questions where shading, you have to find out the fraction of the shaded part, or you have to find out, you have to do the shade, you have to do the shading according to the given fraction. So these are the basics question. These are the very first step questions you are going to get when you are learning fractions. So this is how we are going to work about. Now, in the next video, since this was an introduction video, so I don't want to make it too long. It's shortcut and easy. It's just the basic concept that we understood. In the other video after this, like in a different video, in the next video, we are going to cover how many types of fractions are there. Also, we'll learn the basic mathematical operations using fractions like addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, all these. So after this video, we prepare for the upcoming videos. Thank you so much. That is it for today. Bye.